This week's Parsha is Parshas Vayigash. It's the 11th of 12 Parshas in Sefer Bereshis. We're now going into another transition. Last week's Parsha, Miketz, we saw the rise of Yosef. Um, this week, we see Yosef confronting his brothers and then revealing that he is, in fact, their brother, and tells him to bring his father and the rest of the family down, and because it was going to be 5 more years of famine, and Pharaoh also gave parallel instructions. At that time, Pharaoh was grateful to Yosef, at least up to a point, and then Yaakov was gently told the news because they didn't want to shock him after not seeing his seeing Yosef was lost for 21 years. They had to tell it to him subtly, and he was glad to hear it. And he said, "Now I will live to see my son Yosef." They then go down to Egypt. Yaakov gives a blessing to Yosef, to Pharaoh, and the Parsha continues with before they descend. Yehuda is sent ahead, which I'll be saying more about shortly, is sent ahead and to prepare Goshen. What does he mean to prepare Goshen? I'll also explain that. Then Yosef wants to make it as safe for his family and people who are going to become the Jewish people, which was 70 people came down. Now, what he did, first of all, is as the famine continued, he got the Egyptians to first give all the money, making Pharaoh and the Egyptian government extremely wealthy. When that gave up, the livestock went to Pharaoh, more food. And finally, they were willing to sell themselves as slaves. Instead, Yosef turned them into tenant farmers. And what he did is to prevent any rebellion or being able to focus on his family, he moved all the populations around. Now he take all the people from one town and move them to the other side of Egypt so that nobody could trust anybody other than their immediate relatives and little community. In addition, to so it'd be more comfortable for Yaakov and all of his brothers and family, he ordered that all the Egyptian males be circumcised. Oh, that was one reason. A second reason that was given ultimately was that he was hoping some of them would be, this would be a first step to them genuinely converting. And that was some of those people who did convert may have caused problems later. That's a whole other discussion. In any Sefer Shmos, in any event, the Parsha and it goes on. Israel comes down. Now, why does it say Israel? Um, because that's when Yaakov has two names. Israel is his higher spiritual name, as I'll explain more in next week's Parsha. And also, it's talking about events that will have an impact down to at least the time of Mashiach ben David, the Messianic times. Now, that's on the present level. If you also look at Yosef, Yosef not only provided for everybody, but Yosef, uh, interestingly enough, at the beginning of his time, um, helps the Jews resettle in Goshen temporarily in Egypt. Then at the end of days, it was the son of Mashiach ben Ephraim will be responsible for in gathering all the people in Eretz Israel, will die over living waters in certain circumstances, and then Mashiach ben David will complete the establishment of Hashem's rule on earth, and that is the Parsha. Now, the question I would like to address, one of them is, why didn't Yosef write to or communicate with his father for 22 whole years? Now, we have to look at that on two levels. We have to look at it from Hashem's perspective, and then we have to look at it from the perspective of Yosef. Now, the Orach Chaim gives a number of explanations. Like obviously Yosef was very sensitive, could send to Yaakov's pain. Now, we have to looking at it from Hashem's perspective. It goes like this: Hashem had a certain divine plan of for Yaakov not knowing that Yosef was alive, and now the Orach Chaim was not questioning why that had to be. We can't question Hashem's larger designs, but he does want to explore the reasons why that had to be. First of all, he wanted Yaakov to think that Yosef had died. That was Mida Keneged Mida. That was punishment, fitting punishment for Yaakov for the 2 years he did not communicate with Yitzchak when he was in Laban's house. He could have communicated, but he never did. And even after he got back to Eretz Yisrael and after his confrontation with Esau, it took him 2.5 years before he finally met him. Now, also, it had to be delayed for another reason. The exile was supposed to be from the time of Abraham 400 years. Now, and I'll explain this when we get to say a Parashat Shmos, it could have been literally 400 years, or as it turned out in the case for those number of reasons, it was 210 years from the exile from Yitzchak's birth, and that could only happen if Yaakov only came down at the time he did. And finally, he wanted, Hashem wanted to remain secret so that Yosef could build up his power and could provide generously for his family, and also that Yaakov, even though we all had to go into exile, would be received with the great kavod, respect, and honor he deserved. Now that explains it from Hashem's point of view, but that still doesn't explain it from why Yosef did that. Now, one obvious answer is for a period of that time, he was a prisoner, and he couldn't have gotten an answer to him. Now, that's one answer. However, that would only explain that. He was in power for a number of years before the brothers came down and a famine occurred, 9 years to be exact. So there was a question of why didn't he reveal it then? And one reason that's given, the Orach Chaim gives a very interesting one, is that he was feared for his safety with his brothers. His brothers had shown him great hatred. The fact that they killed him, tried to kill him, and it was only through Hashem's hand that he got out of that that burrow, which they said was empty of water. It was, because it was full of snakes and scorpion. It was only during divine intervention that he did not die there on the spot. And you could say, but wait a minute. What about the time? What about once he rose to power? His brothers couldn't touch him because he was a powerful figure. However, he was still afraid that they might try to kill him because because they were worried he would tell that the whole story would come out to Yaakov of what they did. However, Yosef did not want to do that because he knew if he brought it up any earlier, his brothers would have been in severe trouble. And to embarrass somebody like that, they say one is supposed to rather be thrown into a fiery furnace than to embarrass a person like that. And according to the Midrash, even when he revealed himself, the first reaction of his brothers was that they wanted to destroy him. And it took an angel that his guy had a Hashem sent him a guardian angel to scatter all of them so they couldn't kill him. Now, that's another factor. And so what changed when he did reveal himself? By then, he gave them gifts, he gave them clothing, showed that he was fully going to provide for them. And he told them that, look, this was all part of Hashem's divine plan. So if that was the case, Yaakov wouldn't get mad at him. Nobody was going to be exposed. And then they finally accepted his rulership. Now, that explains that. Now, one more thing I'd like to go into is Yehuda. Yehuda, of all the brothers, why was he sent ahead of Yaakov and the rest of the family coming down? He could have, and he said he was supposed to go to the land of Goshen and set it up. What was he supposed to set up? He was supposed to set up, on the surface level, yeshivas. Now, looking at it from a macroscopic historical, macroscopic historical point of view, there's something far deeper going on, because if one looks at the pasuk where it says he comes down, it says, pasuk 10 in chapter 49. Next week's parsha should be he. It's going to be discussing that. And in this week's parsha, it says that that Yehuda went ahead. Now, how does one understand that pasuk? As is explained by Rav Shimshon Maastropoli, if one looks at it, chapter 46. It says, Et Yehuda Shalach Lefanav El Yosef Lehorat Pofanav Yegoshen V'yo Artso Goshen. He went ahead, he sent Yud ahead of him to Yosef, meaning Yaakov, to prepare ahead of him in Goshen, and they arrived in the region of Goshen. Now, the basic explanation is, if you look at it from the local time then, was to provide yeshivas so that we could learn Torah and continue being righteous, running Hashem's ways. Now, however, if you look at that pasuk, there's something deeper going on, because it explains as a remez, a hint, an allusion, Alusion, that Yehuda, he broke it up with this, the Et Yehuda Shelah, they broke it up into She and Lamed Hey, into the words Lefanav, and what's he telling us? He's referring then to Shiloh, because you can read the word two ways. You can read the word Shiloh, or Sheila. And what is the significance of that? If you look at what Yaakov's going to tell them in next week's Parashat, he is going to be telling them the following. And when he's predicting Yehuda, what's in store for Yehuda, and it says, "And lo yasu shevet mi Yehuda, mekakek mabes love ad ki yovo shila shin yud lamed hey lo yakach amin." And it says, "The scepter will not descend from Judah, nor a scholar from among them," meaning the Rebbeim and also the kings, when we had the kingship. "And the Shiloh shall arrive, and he will be assemblage of nations." Shiloh means the Zman of Mashiach, and that is confirmed also in it's confirmed, if you look at it, the Parsha, it says Shiloh Lefanav, the beginning of the Pasuk, which it says Torah prepares ahead, which is the letters Hey, Lahei, Vav, Resh, Tav, that he went ahead, had the same letters as La Torah, to the Torah. And what are we going to learn? That what's going to ultimately redeem us in these days is, I'm doing Torah mitzvahs, but it's going to be the Torah, Talmud Torah, the teaching and learning of Torah. And it says, Al Yedei Torah, Mashiach will come, and it will be very moved, very deep, very mysterious, very special. And we should remember, as we are seeing even today, with all the strange events that are going around in the world, and as our Torah is increasing, may we soon merit the Zman Mashiach and the fulfillment of this pasuk. Good Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom.